I'm 30, and my family hasn't seen me in 5 years. At my cousin's wedding, my older brother laughed, sipped his wine, and said, "So, you still cleaning toilets for a living?" I just smiled, pulled out my key fob, and said, "Nah, I mostly travel now. My company pays me even when I sleep." The look on his face was better than any apology. 5 years is a long time to stay a ghost. I didn't plan on cutting my family off entirely, but sometimes absolute silence is the only boundary that works. When the heavy, cream-colored invitation to my cousin Sarah's wedding arrived in the mail, I almost tossed it in the trash, but I'm 30 now. The boy they used to mock is dead, and I've built a life they know absolutely nothing about. I decided it was time to RSVP. Walking into that upscale hotel banquet hall felt surreal. The last time most of these people saw me, I was 25, dead broke, and working the graveyard shift as a janitor at a downtown corporate plaza. My older brother Mark was the family's golden child. He was a mid-level finance guy who made sure every family dinner was a comedy roast, with my failures served up as the main course. I kept to myself during the ceremony. I wore a tailored suit, charcoal, understated, no flashy designer labels stamped on the sleeves, but the cut and the fabric spoke for themselves. I caught the whispers, aunts and uncles eyeing me from across the room, trying to reconcile the exhausted, haggard kid they remembered with a man standing quietly at a cocktail bar. I knew it wouldn't take long for Mark to find me. He strolled up to the bar, swirling a glass of red wine, wearing that exact same smug smirk he's had since we were teenagers. He looked me up and down, taking in the suit, clearly assuming it was a cheap rental I had put on a maxed-out credit card. "Look who decided to crawl out of the woodwork," Mark said, his voice loud enough to make a few nearby relatives turn their heads. "How have you been, little brother?" "I've been good, Mark," I said. My voice was completely flat. No anger, no defensiveness, just calm. He took a slow, deliberate sip of his wine, his eyes dancing with that familiar malice. "So you still cleaning toilets for a living? Or did they finally promote you to head mop boy?" The air around us went dead silent. Few relatives tightened their smiles, bracing for a massive blow-up. 5 years ago, I would have flushed crimson. I would have stammered, defended myself, or stormed out of the hall in tears. That's what he wanted. He wanted an audience. He wanted to assert dominance and remind me of my place at the bottom of the family hierarchy. But I didn't feel embarrassed. I didn't feel angry. I just felt a profound sense of pity. I looked at him, really looked at him. I saw the receding hairline, the forced arrogance, the cheap, off-the-rack suit masking a mountain of suburban debt. I knew he carried just to keep up appearances. I just smiled. It wasn't a gloat. It was a genuine, quiet amusement. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the heavy, sleek, leather-bound key fob from my Porsche, and set it lightly on the marble bar top next to his cheap wine. "Nah," I said, my voice quiet, carrying perfectly through the tension. "I mostly travel now. My company pays me even when I sleep." I didn't owe him an explanation. I didn't need to tell him that while I was mopping floors in that corporate plaza, I was listening to business audiobooks, saving every single penny, and building a logistics software company that I sold a majority stake in last year. I didn't need to justify my net worth to a man whose entire identity was tied to a cubicle. The look on his face shifted in slow motion. The smugness cracked. It shattered completely, replaced by utter confusion, and then a sudden, sickening realization. He looked down at the key fob. He looked back up at my suit. He looked at the heavy, matte titanium watch resting quietly on my wrist. The math was doing itself in his head, and the answer was devastating to his fragile ego. "Wait, what company?" he stammered. The mocking tone was entirely gone, replaced by a desperate, panicked need to know he was still better than me. "It was good seeing you, Mark," I said. I tapped the marble bar twice, picked up my keys, and gave a polite nod to the staring relatives. I didn't answer his question. I didn't stick around to rub it in or demand an apology. I simply turned my back and walked toward the exit. The silence left in my wake was absolute. No shouting, no drama. Just the crushing, suffocating weight of silent success. The horrified look on his face as I walked. A way was better than any apology he could have ever given me.